What's going on, Solar Icons family? I hope everybody is doing well. Happy Friday to you. I am super excited about this call. I'll go ahead and throw Chris under the bus because I love him enough to do it. This has been something we've been talking about for probably 6 months, maybe even 7. We finally got him to pull the trigger and open up the curtain to teach us everything about the disc. There are many other personality profiles out there. That is one that Chris and I have just fallen in love with our days at Keller Williams. He is a certified trainer on this topic, was a KW master faculty, and all that fun stuff that goes along with it. This class probably had the biggest impact of any class I've ever taken in the real estate world. It taught me everything I needed to know about how to sell, how to adapt, how to become a chameleon, how to talk to people the way they want to be talked to and not just the way we like to talk. Think about that one for a second, right? So this is going to be an amazing training. I see that we already have a bunch of people hopping on live across all the different social media platforms. If anyone from your team is not here and they want to get better at sales, you know the drill. Send them an invite right now. Tell them to stop what they're doing. Let's get them on this call. Chris, let me turn it over to you for a quick second, man. How the hell are you, brother?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Friday morning, feel good. My mind's good. My body's good. My spirit's great. I'm ready to rock.
Chris, I'm about to make you do jumping jacks, man. You're not beating that chest. This is the disc, bro. Let's go.
I might need to do some push-ups just to get some energy. I'm actually trying to control myself a little bit this morning because I love this topic, man. You know me as far as my journey of looking to master influence, and this is a big part of it. So I'm super excited about this morning, man. And when we get rolling, make sure you guys have a couple of pens handy. You can write fast. I've already given Aaron the authority to slow me down if I get a little too excited and we need to camp out somewhere. He's already got that authority.
I love it. And just so you guys know, watching today, we already have 3 amazingly beautiful, powerful women backstage who we're going to be bringing up throughout the broadcast as well. Super excited about that. But they can see me. I can see them. I love it. Excited about that. So Chris, give us your quick background and how you got introduced to the disc and all that fun stuff, man.
Yeah. So spent 8 years in the Army, jumping out of airplanes, chasing people that like to shoot other people. Got out in 2005, moved to Myrtle Beach, and got into real estate. I didn't know what else I was going to do. I did not want to move back to New York, New Jersey, the cold weather. So I moved here to Myrtle Beach to just kind of take a few years off of life and, kind of recock and regather myself. And I got into real estate and, didn't know anybody here. I knew like 4 people. But I quickly, figured some stuff out and, it was a rookie of the year in the office that I was in. I eventually went and started my own brokerage. And then, I hit a point where my past in the military caught up to me. I struggled with PTSD for about 4.5 years. I lived not a good life. And I realized like if I wanted any sort of future for myself, for my marriage, my children that we started procreating, I guess you could say. My wife waved the flag, man. She said, you need to go get help. And so I went on this journey through the VA and all they did was drug me up, man. I was like drooling all over myself, looking like a knucklehead. And I just didn't want to be that statistic. So I went on a self-help journey. I started in Barnes and Noble, reading some self-help books, was introduced to Tony Robbins. Things just started unfolding. And I just went on this journey of self-mastery, right? It was like, man, I'm not a good person. I want to get from bad to good. I kind of hit that mark. And then I was like, man, what's next? Like good to better and then better. And I didn't want to be the best because in order to be the best, other people have to lose in order for you to win. And that's just not my type of personality. So I just went on this journey of being the best version of myself. And along the way, I was introduced to Keller Williams. Inside the Keller Williams culture, they are very much about betterment of self, betterment of your mind, betterment of performance, etc. And I was introduced to Dr. Abelson, who is one of the creators of a course through DISC. We'll talk a little bit about DISC in a minute. And I went through a certification course. They implemented a lot of this in the Keller Williams community. We taught it at a really high level all across the country. And so from that point forward, I realized one fundamental statement about DISC, and DISC relates to the 4 types of personality. We all possess each one, DISC. We'll get into it a little bit more in a minute. But what I learned is that we all possess these personality traits, and personality is someone's personal reality. Okay, let me say that again. Personality is somebody's personal reality. It's their internal. It's everything about them. And so when you understand that and you look to get in the game of sales or influence for that matter, whether you're in coaching, you're in leadership, or you're in sales of some nature, you're in the business of influencing human beings. And when you're in the business of influencing human beings, there's one thing we need to understand is that if you don't know what influences someone, you don't know how to effectively influence them, right? So if you look at leadership, if you're looking to influence people, and the definition of influence is the power to affect someone's character and or actions. I say leadership is character and actions. Sales is more so actions. Right. And so if you don't understand what influences someone to take action or what prevents them from taking action, you're going to be limited in your capability to influence someone's character and or action. So when I really understood that piece, I went deep into master certification in DISC. And then, if like you really want to master something, like you can go through certification courses and learn the information. If you really want to learn something deep, teach it. And that's what I did for a couple of years around the country. And I integrated it into my coaching program that I had for a long time, Script Ninja Coaching. And then we shelved that. And, that's why Aaron said at the beginning, it's taken a while to kind of dig this back up. But yeah, here we are. And here's who I am, man. This is how DISC and Chris Hart have come together.
I love it, man. It's funny. I think I've known you now for probably 7 or 8 years, close to 10 anyway. I didn't know you met Abelson. That's badass, man. I've never had the privilege of meeting him, but his headquarters, I don't know if it's his son now or whatever. It's been a minute since I've really dived in, but he's actually where I went to school down at UVA in Charlottesville. I think
that's ABA. That's
you're right. Sorry,
that's
totally
the
right.
Henyons. I know. I know them well.
Right.
Bain Henyon is the initial or the person that created the company Corporate Consulting,
yep.
Who created the AVA, who's actually responsible for taking Keller Williams to being the #1 real estate company of choice. And then he retired, and the company was taken over by his son Brett, who I know very well, and I went through a long process with him as well. So I know both personality and behavior, and we're going to talk about that difference here in our time this morning.
Yeah. One thing I'll add to the audience too, and I said this on the teaser call I think we did last week when you unveiled that you were going to be covering this. It's not, sales is everything. I mean, Grant Cardone says that we're selling to our spouses, we're selling to our kids,
absolutely.
Get them to eat this, get them to go to bed, get them to wake up, get them to do good at school. It's sell or be sold, right? Either you're the one doing the selling or you're the one getting sold. It just is what it is. Every single occupation. The thing I love about the DISC too that I don't hear a lot talk about, and I know you share this same sentiment, is it's not just on how to sell solar, how to sell real estate, whatever else you do on this call. It's how to talk to your kids, how to talk to your spouse.
Yeah.
Imagine coming home from work, coming home from whatever you're doing, and being able to know exactly how to communicate with those you care about. Like, this is a cheat code. I have heard, I am happily married. I can see my wife. I would have said it if she's not here. If I would have known about the DISC being single, I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. Like, oh my God, sorry, babe. Like, it changes everything. You're now communicating with exactly how people want to hear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 100%. Well, here's the thing that people need to understand about this. Remember what I said is that this is about human beings, right? And the power to influence them, which is the power to affect their character and actions. It's not just sales, right? It's leadership. And in relationships, there's always has to be a leader, right? In our marriages, and I'm not going to say one leads the next, but there's leaders. And at times we need to influence each other for certain circumstances. in your relationships with children, in your relationships with family, right? We all have the one cray-cray in our family that makes holidays an interesting experience. But point of the matter is, this is about human beings and the construct of human beings relative to their personal reality, such that you can understand that when, let's say you're having an argument, right? And you have to, and we'll talk about D's, right? D's are the dominants. You know, they're real energetic. They'll lock horns. You get two D's together in a disagreement, and people are like, holy crap, they're arguing. Go like, no, we're just having a conversation. So true. Right? But if you don't know, right? Let's say you're a high I, or let's say you're an S, and you'll understand this more as we get into this. And you're trying to have that conversation and they're getting heated, right? You may look at it and go, why are you yelling at me? Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of insight to some of my relational experiences with my spouse. She's a high I, right? She's more on the IS, even though she has some D in her. We may get into an argument. She's like, why are you yelling at me? I'm like, I'm not yelling at you. She's like, you are. And I'm like, I'm not. She's like, you are. I'm like, now you're making me mad, right? Like, when you understand DISC and you understand how to interact with someone who leads with a specific personality type and how they're complemented with another personality type, man, you can start navigating experiences, situations, circumstances, whether they're conversations, arguments, sales processes, leadership constructs. It all comes together and it really unlocks the ability for great relationships.
You know, I love that too, Chris. You bring up a really good point. What I was talking about a few minutes ago was more on the offensive of you trying to communicate better. The other thing of mastering the DISC, that it's allowed me to be more flexible with those I'm talking to. My father-in-law, I love him to death. Super high D, like off the chart. See my wife, like off the chart. Probably 2 or 3% more than Chris. For 10 years, you know, before I got introduced to this, man, I thought the guy hated me. I thought he hated me. I mean, this guy freaking loves me, but it's just the way he communicates. And when I started to understand the DISC, to Chris's point, I realized that he wasn't yelling at me. That was his way of showing love and passion and everything else. So it took me becoming a higher level person, a higher level thinker for me to understand that. And our relationship therefore blossomed because of it.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, like I said, that's where you can start taking your sales business. That's when you can start taking your team and your organization really to the next level. Because if you don't understand people, then, and you're in the people business, right? Like if you're a leader out there, listen to me. If you are a leader out there, you're in the people business. If you are a salesperson, you are in the people influencing business. Okay. I learned from Tony Robbins a long time ago, which I will plug his business mastery course. It's one of the best business seminars I've ever been to. It takes into account everything from psychology to strategy to execution to planning. It's the best. Attend it. Spend the money. Well worth it. He says in that course, in that seminar, he says, if you don't know what business you're in, you're going to be out of business. Okay. And so understand this. If you're in sales, if you are a leader, you are in the people influencing business for positive outcomes and results. Okay. In leadership, not everything goes your way, right? Because we're dealing with people. The more people you have, the bigger the organization, the more flexibility you need to have as a leader. And here's the thing, if you can flex based off of how people get influenced, you're going to be a top-notch leader, as opposed to if your organization has to flex to meet you where you're at all the time, you're going to lose people. You're going to lose them 100%. Right. And so if you're a leader out there and you've been growing teams and it grows and or organizations for that matter, it grows and it falls apart and it grows and it falls apart. You may be in that categorization of a leader whereby your organization has to flex to you, as opposed to your ability to flex to your people. And that's kind of how I wrote my 6 levels of leadership model, where, you know, we got to be a great follower, lead thyself, lead others, right? Lead another and lead others. The second you get into that lead another person, you need to know what influences them. The second you need to lead others, right? There's multiplicity involved there. You need to know how to do it both as a group, right? And here's the thing. I tell people, you need to have a leadership personality, which is understanding what these elements of personality are that we're going to go over today, right? And you need to have a personal reality construct of your organization, which means the highest and best. I'm not going to get into big leadership coaching here, but understand this. The best organizations have all four personalities, right? They have people that lead with their dominant. They have people that lead with their interpersonal. They have people that lead with their steady stability. And they have people that lead with their conscientious. Because when you do, you have a complete organization. If you're a limited leader, all you're ever going to have are people that are all the same. And that's where we start to have friction, and we start to have people on the proverbial wrong seat of the bus, right? You can't have a driver, a dominant, or an interpersonal personality in a operations role that requires high attention to detail. And it's very limiting if you have high attention to detail people in your frontline sales force. Those are the people that get bogged down with paralysis of analysis.
I love that. Now, I'm presuming you have something we can kind of break down with the D,
with
the I. Yeah.
Yeah. So
one housekeeping thing, Chris, and then I'll turn over that because I think it's important. First, let us know in the chat if you guys are understanding the importance of what he's about to take a deep dive on. Like, business obviously is huge. That's why most of us are here. I know you couldn't see my hand. But then also personally, like my father-in-law's story, like really, really important. One housekeeping item as well. Yes, this is very, very interactive through StreamYard. I think my wife or Stacy threw it up. Make sure you update your settings so we can pull you up from Facebook if that's where you're watching, or from StreamYard itself. All thought-provoking questions, comments, we're going to pull them up on the main screen. We want to give you guys as much love and shout outs as we can. So very, very interactive. Chris, I'll turn it back over to you for an outline of what it is, man.
Yeah. So, let's first, we'll take it 10,000 feet above sea level, and then we'll kind of descend down into the roots of this. But to understand DISC is an acronym, right? It's D-I-S-N-C. And those are the four elements of personality. D stands for dominant. I stands for influence or interpersonal. S is steady and stable. And C is conscientious. Okay, and I'm gonna deep dive into each one of these. But to first understand, when we say DISC, it is an acronym, and it stands for the four main behavioral styles that every individual possesses. Right. So when we talk about personality, that's what this is. This is personality traits. And so when we understand personality from a psychological level, it's someone's personal reality. That's how we get personality. And so when you look at it, right, understand this. Every single person possesses all four, okay? Every single person possesses D. Every single person possesses I. Every single person possesses S. And every single person possesses C. The question is, how much of each does a individual have? Now, how do we know that? We don't know until we take an assessment. There's hundreds of different assessments out there. I recommend the Abelson one. That's one I'm highly trained on. If you do want to take that assessment, let me know. I can get you linked up with Abelson, or you can look them up online. It's not very much. I highly recommend you invest in that. If you want a free version, on Tony Robbins' website, he actually offers a free DISC assessment. Understand it's a lead capture thing, so you will get a call from their coaching department. They're going to try and sell you on coaching, but you can at least get the assessment. And what I'm going to offer everybody today is, if you go out and get an assessment, I will do a free 30-minute validation with you. And the validation is a really, really valuable process for you to learn and unlock an understanding about you. And why is this important? Because when we look at influence, right, you have to know how you're influenced first before you can go out and influence others. Okay. So if you're listening to this, you're taking the time, you have a DISC assessment, you go out and get a DISC assessment, hit me up. I'll offer you a free 30-minute coaching session. I'll walk you through it. We'll validate it, and you'll know where you start. And we're going to be talking more about this each and every week. We're going to do some deep dive training on this over the course of the next couple of weeks. So I highly recommend, if nothing else, you get your DISC assessment done. If it's been longer than 2 years, get an updated one. Okay. So people ask me all the time, Chris, does this flex? Yes, it does. Your personality flexes. You grow, you mature. Remember, personality is personal reality. Your reality changes over periods of time. The biggest thing that causes someone's personality to change is their experiences, right? Traumatic experiences. Okay. I was a different person before combat than I was coming out of combat, right? And I had to, the big thing that I learned, Aaron, from my journey of working through PTSD, is I had to relearn myself. I had to relearn the new personal reality of Chris Hart, right? And I had to be okay with that. And so I highly recommend that anybody starting out, if this is your initial learning, you've never done DISC, never learned DISC before, start with an assessment, hit me up. I'll be more than happy to invest that time into you. So when we dig into this, right, let's look at, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to give you guys a visual.
By the way, Chris, as you're pulling that up, I'm going to add this real quick, guys. I did not know he was going to do that. So that's going to be a huge time commitment for him. God bless him. That is massive because the disc, it's powerful. For anyone that's not done it or not taken a deep dive, you're not going to understand a lot of it. Some of it, because it's going to give, I don't remember the exact language, not areas of improvement, but it's weaknesses. It's things that you need to overcome. You need to be aware of. And for some of us, we might not have been aware of that. And all of a sudden it's like a gut punch. It was for me when I first did this in real estate. I did not match the so-called profile of every other mega agent, right? So it took someone like a Chris Hart to validate that and go through to where my strengths were and then areas of improvement. So I 1,000% would take him up on that. My wife is going to find the link for the free one. We'll throw that up there as well.
Awesome. So Aaron, Mr. Malcolm, my man, how are you this morning, buddy? Good to see you. He said, how can the results of the DISC assessment test be used for employees selection and recruitment? What an amazing, amazing question. Look at this picture. That's awesome. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Hang out for the journey that we're going to go on over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks. I'm going to do a training more involved in DISC that's going to dive deeper. That's going to answer that question. Today, we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg of understanding, and that's a much deeper rooted question. So we definitely will handle that in the course of the next few weeks. So Aaron, can you guys see my screen? Can you pull that up?
Yep, I'll do it right now.
All right, awesome. So here's what we have, guys. We have 4 quadrants, right? And if you look at it, we're going to start from the top left quadrant and go clockwise, right? So we've got dominance, influence, we've got steadiness, and we've got conscientious. So here's what we understand. Every single one of these personality traits has a number of different subsectors to them. They have speed, right? And it's the speed at which somebody operates in all things. For instance, dominant personality traits, their speed is fast, okay? They're fast-paced people. They talk fast, they move fast, their thinking is fast, and their reactions are fast. Their decision makings are fast, right? Like my wife tells me all the time, she won't allow me. Years ago, we got rid of cable, and I think it's because we used to have these packages that show up at the door. And there was a time, I'll tell a quick story. My mother-in-law was staying with us when we just had our first baby, and she wanted to help out. She's an amazing woman, God rest her soul. And she's staying with us. And she was a night owl like me, and we'd watch television, and these infomercials would come on, and I'd be like, oh, I gotta have that. And I would literally buy it, and a couple of days later, a package would show up, and my mother-in-law would go, what's that? I'm like, oh, this is the Steam Shark 2000. And she would just shake her head, and my wife would be like, you buy everything. I'm like, that's right. I see something, boom, I make a quick decision. I want it. We take fast action. That's what high Ds do, right? So when we talk about pace, what I want you guys to pay attention to with personality traits, when you're starting to look at your environment and people within it, look at how fast people move, how fast or slow they talk, right? And start to pay attention to these traits and start to think about some of the people in your environment and how the speed orients to who they are and what they do in your world, in their world, okay? Second one is temperament or temperature. We have hot, warm, and cold. Ds are hot, like they're hot-tempered. You can take them from 0 to like boom in a heartbeat. They can be cool, calm, collected. Next thing you know, there's a trigger and they're just boom, right? And so I'll talk through each one of these, but I'm just giving you guys some quick understanding. And then there's mantras by their thinking. There's a statement. High D's, their mantra is I can do it. Very I-based people. They're individuals. They're independent. Okay. High I's, we can do it. High I's love people. They're energized by people. So they operate more from the we, collective nature. You have high I's in your world. They love everybody. They talk fast. They move fast. But they are not going to be influenced in the manner in which, hey, girl, you can do it. And they're like, yeah, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I know, but who else is involved? But if you turn around to them and say, hey, come join us tonight, like they respond to words like us and we. Okay. Whereas D's, they tend to be, as much as they're extroverted, they tend to show up sometimes as introverted. It's not that they're introverted, they're just very independent. And a lot of times they don't like to do things collectively with other people because other people slow them down. You know what? Just give it to me. I'll do it. I'll take care of it. Right? D's tend to show up as control freaks because they are results based. Right? And then there's some key words that identify each one. And one of the next classes that we're going to teach on DISC is selling with DISC, right? What is the language of DISC? Meaning each personality trait has words that they use, right? So for many of you guys that have been on coaching calls with me, script calls, been through my script coaching program, that sort of thing, you see me and hear me do this. I say, use these things. Because your ears will tell you everything you need to know about how somebody shows up. Somebody's words are nothing more than an excommunication of their internal, right? And their internal is their personal reality, right? Mitch says, I've studied this a number of times over the years. It's massive on your production to master this. 100% agree. 100% agree. Okay. So there's certain words that they'll say that you can identify and go, that's an S, that's a C, that's an I, that's a D, right? And there's certain words that if you understand those words and how they relate to a particular personality, once you recognize that personality, you can use those words to influence them. It's just subconscious influence, right? But what we need to understand about this is all these components, speed, temperament, mantras, and key words all come together for the greater understanding of how to influence an individual, right? So I see my mentor, my good friend, Lenny Fairfield on here, okay? Guys, I'm just going to tell you right now, and you'll see this as I go through it, I show up as a leading personality type of D dominance, okay? Lenny does not. I can tell you that right now. Lenny operates more on what I call the lower spectrum. So you see on the, we'll just see like right across the middle that separates D and I, S and C. Above the line is the upper spectrum. Below the line is the lower spectrum. Lenny shows up at the lower spectrum. He'll move slower. He'll talk slower. He'll talk more even keeled, right? He likes to say, oh, us Carolina folk. It's not Carolina folk. It's personality traits. So if I'm like highly emotional, which I've been with Lenny, we have some pretty interesting conversations, right? Like Lenny says, you nailed it. It's just understanding how people show up, right? So when you understand these things and you see how they show up, you know, one of the things that I learned, like when I communicate with Lenny, I got to slow down. I got to be less emotional. I got to be less intense, right? I can't expect Lenny to adapt to me. That's not what good leaders do. That's not what good salespeople do. They adapt. They become the chameleon. All right. So let's dig into this. And guys, I'm not going to go through every word on this. If somebody, Aaron, or Dora, if you want to put my email up, it's cvhart@me.com. If you want to put that in the chat box and put it on the screen, you're welcome to email me and I will send you this document so you can have it. So just kind of listen, take notes if you would, if you're driving, allow this to just kind of ruminate in your head, and then email me for the document. And this will be kind of the framework that we're going to use for the successive weeks moving forward. And we're going to go over this over and over. So don't be so worried about having to capture everything. So dominance and influence. Let me go through the construct first, right? So dominance and influence tend to go together. You'll hear language like, oh, I'm a DI or ID. Okay, so that's above the spectrum line, that what we call the energy line. Then there's the line down the middle, the vertical one that separates INS, D, and C. Those are relational personality traits as well. Okay, so a DI is different than an IS and an SC or a CD, or a DC. Okay, so there's 12 different personality associations. There's DI, DC, there's IS, SI, there's CS, SC, there's DC, CD. You know what there's not? You ready for this? And what I like to tell people, let me back up for a second. What I like to tell people is these lines, right, between the D and the I, you see how much shared space that they have? There's a lot of shared space there, which means those two personality traits assimilate together. What there's not, which are, I will tell you, are the complete opposites, are D and S, I and C. Complete opposites. Okay. So Aaron, your wife, Dora, my interpretation is she shows up as a leading hey girl, I didn't know you were here. This is weird. Okay. She shows up on the S spectrum. She leads with her S. Okay. And so for a D like myself, somebody who leads with their D, and someone who leads with their S, we're two completely different people, right? If Dora didn't know me as well as she does, she'd probably have a hard time with me, and she probably does at certain times, right? Like she's experienced a lot because Aaron and I have been in business for together for a number of years and different business opportunities, and Dora's been along for the ride, and she probably just rolls her eyes at me. No. But just understand that who she is and who I am are two completely different people, right? And then we have the high I, who somebody in our organization, Stacy Reed, I know she's back. There she is. Oh, that was our resident Katie Douglas. Okay, Katie shows up as a high D, right? Now, Katie and I, we get to talking, and we can talk real fast. We can share things real fast, and we're connecting. And then Katie might say something and piss me off, right? That happens too. But here's the reality with D's. We get as fast as we can get as explosive as fast as we can calm down and kind of, reorient, where other people are like, they look at us and they all automatically get a judgment about us, right? Have you ever experienced that, Katie, where people have a hard time handling your intensity, your emotions, your speed, your energy, right? Like people Completely. Have a hard time with these. Yep. And so the ones that have the hardest time with us are S's, right? And so when we look at the other construct, the I and the C, I is very interpersonal. They are the effervescent, bubbly person. You guys ready for this? Like, I'm going to get in my girly voice now. Like, hey girl, what's up? Oh my gosh, I haven't seen, girl, you look marvelous. Like they start using this very bubbly, effervescent personality, and their words are eccentric. They use words like wonderful, fabulous, gorgeous, right? Now, notice Katie's like, oh, that's me, that's me. Now, we just talked that Katie was a D. Guess what Katie is? She a DI. Now, the question is, does she lead with her D? Does she lead with her I? Is she a DI or is she an ID? We don't know unless Katie took an assessment. But here's what I want you guys to understand about this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they lead or like. It doesn't like. We don't want DISC to be this label, this scarlet letter, or anything that makes you feel less than, right? Like I've seen in the sales space where people are like, oh man, I'm so disappointed. I'm an SC. I'm never going to win at sales. That's not true. That's not true. It's just a matter of understanding who you are, your personality, so that you can determine what your behavior, what you do. Write this down. Personality is who you are. Behavior is what you do. Let me say that again for people in the back. Personality is who you are. Behavior is what you do. And your behavior can change based off of knowing who you are and what you need to do. Right? So if you are an S that moves slow, you're steady, you're stable, and you're in sales, and sales requires like some dominance, fast pace, get people to make decisions, be a little assertive, etc. You have to determine for yourself, is that something you can, and are you willing to do that? And if so, then you got to do it, right? You've got to take yourself into that mental space where you need to learn how to navigate that piece, right? In sales, in leadership, that sort of thing, I have to be more extroverted than I care to on most days, right? And so if I'm around people too much, I'm like, man, I got to go recharge my battery. I need to be left alone a little bit, right? Aaron, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I love this topic, like really, really do. This is something it's near and dear to my heart because I struggled with it. I can't say it enough. When I had this assessment, I was a rookie as a real estate professional, and they had it's an assessment, not a test. So if you ever hear me use that word, smack me in the hand. I want to be clear on that. There is no pass or fail. We are all people of God. Like we all have personalities. It's nothing bad nor good. Personality just is, right? It's really important we all understand that. But they had assessment scores of like the top 1,000 mega agents, people who were killing it. And typically they were IDs or DIs, some variation of that, right? And I was not that, especially early in my career. So what really helped me, because I was in the dumps. I was like, oh my gosh, did I choose the wrong field? Like I really took this assessment at heart. And what I realized, Chris, and you correct me if I'm wrong or add to it, I like to look at personality like a rubber band. So rubber band just sitting here, right, without me stretching it, is who we want to be. It's who we are organic. And then if I was an IS, but I need to add some D, I want to lead an organization, I'm going to start to pull it. We all have the ability to pull it. The question is, how much of that rubber band are you willing to pull it and for how long? So for me, especially early on, I was pulling that rubber band because I had massive freaking goals. I would be at the office every single day. My wife will tell you, from 7 in the morning to 8 p.m. at night. When I came home, I didn't have much bandwidth left for my family because I was stretching that band, honing that skill, right? Of having that high I, being social around everybody, and then flexing the D as well. That when I got home, I wanted to go back to where I normally was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Really, really important.
So
we all have it. We just need to find our
good.
right seed and have those goals of is it worth it to us to stretch? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And gosh, we can go so deep with this, guys, and we will over the next few weeks. So I'm going to try and do my best not to get sucked into the really fun stuff about DISC. But understand this. You do, just because, right, Michael Berenger says that, not Berenger. Oh my gosh. Michelle Thompson, said, I've taken the test, which Aaron said it's a assessment several times. It's always been the same DI with low S and medium C. Drive is what my personality is described as. So you're someone like Michelle. Understand that it doesn't mean you can't operate in the S and the C. It just means, like Aaron said, you have to stretch. So what I would tell you guys as leaders, business owners, whatever the case may be, salespeople, you need to know what your stretch is, right? So for those of you guys that are independent contractors, you have your own business, however you show up, and you don't like numbers. Well, numbers is the ingredient of business. You've got to like numbers. Well, actually, let me restate that. You don't have to like numbers. You have to be able to stretch to work numbers, okay? Which means, Lenny, it's fun hanging out with DIs. He said earlier, SCs are the ones keeping the DIs from exploding. You're 100% correct. And this is why we love you, Lenny, right? This is why we keep you, or at least why I keep you in my world. You're an awesome person, but, you counterbalance me, right? And that's why he was a great mentor to me coming into the solar business and industry, because when you come into something new and you're a high D, you want results. Things don't always work out in your favor as far as timing is concerned. And if you would ask Lenny, there's been a number of times when he was first mentoring me that, man, I was a little explosive, right? I was a little explosive about some things, and he had to learn to calm me down. For real, I promise. No word of a lie.
Oh, I believe it. I was kidding.
I know you are. I was being facetious. But again, that's where Lenny's mature enough professionally and relationally, that he knew how to lead me and, calm me down and help me understand, like, hey man, this is par for the course in solar. So my point is, in that particular case, I had to stretch, right? So you have to learn what your stretch is. So I want to be very clear. I don't care what you are, DI, ID, SC, CS, DC, CD, SI, doesn't matter. What matters is that you know where you are, okay? It matters that you know where you are, you know what your stretch is, and here's the big piece. You have to time your stretch. You have to time your stretch, okay? Which means if I've got to work numbers, right? If I got to move out of my D and be real conscientious and detail oriented and really dig into numbers, I've got to time it. I can only give myself about 30 minutes. After that, I start to get stressed out. I get frustrated. When I find myself there, because high Ds are not in the weeds, they're not in the details, right? That's their stretch. So understand, as you start to move through understanding this about yourself and what you can do, it's very important about the people around you, right? So when Malcolm's like, how can we use this for hiring? I'll show you that later down the road. How do we use this for leading our people? Hey, if you have a D in a position that requires high detail orientation, right, and in the weeds and that sort of thing and building systems, they're super stressed out. That's why they have to go take cigarette breaks every 15 minutes. But if you have a C in that role that gets energized by numbers, right, like Lenny, right, he's CSSC. In his previous career, he was a wealth manager. He could look at numbers, he can dig into them, and it's like it energizes him. When you get in your energy zone, that's when you're powerful. When you're outside your energy zone and you're stretching, that's where you're reducing your power. But you have to be able to operate in both, okay? So let's get back into this. We look at priorities for the dominant, right? They're getting immediate results. So if they don't get immediate results, what happens? They get frustrated. Okay. They love taking action. What happens with people in their world, on their team, in their organization that they lead that don't take action, right? Paralysis of analysis. They get frustrated. So understand, is these are priorities to that personality trait. The opposite frustrates them. Okay. They're motivated by power and authority. They're very power-based people. Okay. They love leadership. They love leadership. Like if they're in a room and there's not a leader that shows up, you'll know them real quick because they get frustrated by the lack of power and authority and lack of leadership, and they'll just take over. And it's like they kick people out of the way. They push out the bullshit. Oh, excuse me. They push out the crap and they go, all right, guys, here's what's going to happen. And everyone's like, oh, here we go again. Well, here we go again because no one else is stepping up. That's how they show up. Fears. This is super important. They fear loss of control. Right. And the biggest thing is they fear being taken advantage of. And the last one, it's not on the sheet, but write this down to understand about D's. They fear their time being wasted. If you waste the D's time, that is a rapport break with them. Okay. And D's, what you'll notice, they're very self-confident. They're, I don't care what you say about me. You hear me say this a lot. Like, I don't care about your opinion. I don't live for other people's opinion. Right? I'm very self-confident, very direct, right? They're
Chris, I got to slow you down for a second, brother. That was a big one, man. I'm sorry. The wasting time, for one, I don't know how that's not on the sheet. That's crazy. That is so freaking important, man. So important. This is huge. Do I have any recruiters on this call? Any future recruiters, team builders, right? Throw it in the chat. We want to see you. Oh, yeah. This is massive, right? Because high Ds get shit done. It is what it is. Let's call it. We all want a lot of high Ds.
And that's the only way you can say it. Not having an undisciplined tongue. That's really the only way you can say it. And let's say it again.
They get it done. Okay, cool. I see a lot of memes. Watch this though. If I'm a high I, meaning I just want to talk, I want to know about the kids, I want to know about the ate for dinner, everything else, and I have a high D, Chris, on the phone who I'm trying to get to join my organization. If I spend 7-8 minutes talking about all the background stuff, I'm going to call it noise to a high D. I've lost him. He's multitasking. He's doing 1,000 other things. This is why we are teaching this. I need to identify very, very quickly that Chris is a high D, and then I'm bringing that heat. Like, I'm bringing that heat. Chris, listen, you only got 30 seconds. I only got 20, man. Is it cool we run? Yeah. You're going to see Chris like geek. Like, yeah, dude, talk to me. Because I identified his language. I'm going to give him straight facts. We're going to get right to it. And he's going to feel energized because I spoke to him how he wants to hear the information. right?
Yeah,
Really, really important. You guys pick up on this. So pivotal.
And here's something really important about that, right? Like everybody, for those of you guys that are out there recruiting, et cetera, and you want to build a team, everybody wants the D's, right? Because they get stuff done, right? And they do it quickly. They're driven towards results. They don't waste any time. They're impatient. Like everybody loves them. Get them in your organization, pull the cord, let them go, and you just clean up the mess that they make along the way. But here's the thing, right? And Aaron, I'm sure you can attest to this, right? Decision making, right? If you are a leader that wants a D in your organization, they're quick on making decisions, and you can't make decisions, you're out. They're out. You'll lose them. So the organization you want, this is why I say you have to have an organizational personality. And when you understand that you want D's in your organization, in your sales force, but you as a leader get stuck in the weeds and you can't make decisions, and you can't get other people to make decisions, they're like, I'm out of here. This guy can't get stuff done.
I'll throw another one too, Chris. Really good nugget there. You mentioned results oriented, and I couldn't agree more with that. So leaders and future leaders on the call, if you get blessed with a high D in your organization, right? Specifically, we're talking about here solar. If you're not able to help that person get into action and get results quickly, they're gone.
Gone.
I want to be crystal clear on that. Gone. And it wasn't that the opportunity wasn't right. It was that you didn't lead them right. You didn't lead them correctly. They must have results. I have someone in my world right now who I've struggled to get him that result. I have to. He has 1 foot out the door because he's not winning here. He wants to know he can use his personality, plug and play, and kick this thing into next gear. And so as leaders, we have to identify that. Really, really important.
Well, what's important about that too, Aaron, is that, in recruiting, we want everybody to see our opportunity and make a decision quick, right? Like we want them to see it, see the video, ask a couple questions, and go, all right, how do I get in? And we've all had those handful of people in our organizations, in our recruiting effort, but that's a high D.
Yep.
Right? But understand this. Remember, they move fast. They make decisions fast. They talk fast. Everything about them's fast. Fast in, fast out. How do we prevent the fast out? You get them into the money. Because why? They're results driven. And if you're selling them on, this is a great opportunity to make $10,000, 6-figure monthly income, 6-figure annual, blah, 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 blah. Whatever you're selling them on, that's speaking to their interpersonal reality. Remember what I tell you guys. What you recruit somebody to is the same reason why they'll leave you if you can't deliver on it. But with high Ds, that's uber important. Okay? Uber important. So as much as we have strengths, it's too much of anything is no good. Every personality trait has limitations. It's the yin-yang theory. For every good, there's an equal and opposite bad, right? For every strength, there's an equal and opposite weakness. So on this quadrant, you'll also see there's limitations. For the high D, their limitations are lack of concern. Man, how important is that? How does that affect leading an organization? I hear this all the time. Chris, you have to be more empathetic. Okay. Right. That's my stretch. That's my stretch. It might be a stretch for some others that are high Ds out there as well. Impatient. Chris, you got to slow down. You got to take the cares of other people into account. Okay. Or insensitive. I get this one all the time. My son will fall off his bike, bump his knee, and I'm like, get on the bike, man. Just rub some dirt on it. Let's go. Chris, you can't use that military lingo with your children. Right?
Chris, I had to bring Mike up because he's laughing hysterically at what you just did backstage.
Yeah. Mike, how's that speaking to you?
Oh, well, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of my own experience with life. My son, my wife and I got separated. My ex-wife and I got separated. He was 3 years old, and I had this horrible guilt to mess up his life, and I let him suffer the. I tried to steer him back to the center of the road, but I never said you have to do this or that. He's a great man, a 30 years old married restaurant consultant, and I know that life's real experiences is what makes people who they are, and the parenting that takes place nowadays. They're just messing up their kids, man, by whatever.
Well, they're messing up their kids because they're trying to make that. Man, you're gonna get me into something. I might get in trouble because this is live and being.
Why did I bring Michael up? I should have known he was going to set you off.
He's poke the bear, the D poking the D. Here's the thing, right? in parenting, yes, that what Michael said is very true. There's a lot of parents that really do screw up their kids because they try and make them something that they weren't designed to be. Like parents, let me be clear about something. God created your kid. Okay. God blessed you to lead and guide your child, not make them something. That's God's job. Stop trying to be God. Okay. Let go and let God. Okay. Just lead them, coach them, and guide them, not being into what you want them to be because, you know, hey, if somebody would have just cared a little bit more, you'd have been a professional baseball, basketball, football player. And now you're going to show that same care to your kid. And the kid didn't even like the damn sport. Okay. It's not your job to make them a professional, whatever player that you failed to be. It's your job to lead and guide them into their purpose. Right.
Chris, I'll echo that, man. You shared that with me when my oldest was probably 4 or 5. I was failing. I wanted him to be the soccer star. I wanted all of it. And I was pushing it so hard. And I remember you coaching me on that, and it changed everything. Now, I mean, sports is not his play. I mean, if it changes, that'd be great. But I love him for who he is. He's God's creation, not mine. And my wife and I will just do everything we can to support him. And hearing you say that, it took you saying it several times to me, right? I think the other one we do as parents, and this we could take a whole different dovetail on this. I think a lot of times we like to project where we failed, our shortcomings.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, which is crazy.
It's exactly what it is. That's where most parents fail in parenting, is that they try and parent their kids to their shortcomings and failures. And your kids are not you. They're of you. They're of your DNA. They're not you, right? And so I'll say this, and then we'll wrap up with the I, and then next week we'll get into the CNS so we can get a little bit more in depth on that and not shortchange those personality traits. Here's what we need to understand about that component, right? Is that when you allow, but yeah, let me back up. For those of us that love Apple, okay, Apple products, iPhone, iMacs, whatever. If you're of the other than Apple culture, I'm sorry. You know, somebody failed you. Make better decisions. No, I'm just kidding. But Apple's better. We know it is. Thank God, right? Aaron, would you say thank God Steve Jobs' parents didn't force him to be a superstar soccer player? 100%. We'd never have the iPhone. We'd never have the iMac. We never have the iPad. We never have iPods. You know, we'd never have that. But because because Steve Jobs' parents allowed him to be that tech geek, both as a little kid, as a teenager, college, post-college, etc., he was able to live out his purpose. And look at the impact he's made on the world, right? That's a CS. That's a CS right there. Thank God his parents or anybody else in his world didn't force him to be a DI, right? Understand your kids for who they are, what God made them to be. And it's your job to be a leader to them, not the designer. Okay, so let's wrap up with the I real quick, right? I is influence. I don't like using this word influence, to be honest with you, because it's not a personality trait. It's actually an action. The personality trait on the I is actually interpersonal. They're very people connected, right? They love people. In the Army, we used to say, we move to the sound of the guns, right? In life, interpersonal, high I's, they move to the sound of people. They're hanging out over here and there's a group of people over there. They'll be like, oh, I'm going over there. If they're hanging out with you and you guys are chit-chatting and a group of people over on their left are laughing and joking, boom, they're gone. They're over in that direction. They love fun. Let's write this down. There's an F word for every single one of these personality traits. You ready? And I'm not going to lose my tongue on this, I promise. The D's F word, it's not what you think, Lenny. I promise you I wouldn't use it, okay? The D's F word is fast forward. They like to move fast and they like to go forward. You slow them down, you cause them to look behind you, move, rewind sort of thing, you'll lose with them. The I's F word is fun. The S's F word is family. And the C's F word is facts, F-A-C-T-S. Let me say it again. D's F word is fast forward. I's F word is fun. S's F word is family. And C's F word is facts. Okay. And that's just a real quick, relational understanding that if you understand you're dealing with let's say you're dealing with an S, and I'm talking to them and I'm in their home doing a solar proposal or on Zoom, and they're talking about their family, or I understand they're an S and I start talking about their family, I've got connectivity. Okay. So when we look at the interpersonal, they're fun. They love people. They operate in the we and the us. Okay. Their priorities, they're very expressive of their enthusiasm. That's why I said they're very bubbly and everything. Hey, girl, when they walk into a room, you know. How do you know? Outside, even if they say nothing, do nothing, they're dressed to the T. Right? They got the Dolce & Gabbana belt, the Louis Vuitton shoes, the Gucci, whatever handbag. Right? They drive the premium car. It looks beautiful. Right? Everything aesthetically is enthusiastic, effervescent, bubbly, etc. around them. They're very visually representative of who they are and their personality trait. They are action takers, but different from the D. Okay. I's technically don't even care about the result. They care about who we're doing it with. Okay. And they encourage collaboration because collaboration is about the multiplicity of people. They're motivated by social recognition. Ooh. Is Katie Douglas still in the back? Can we bring her in? Look at that. See her? Every time she comes on screen, she just smiles. She loves it. You give Katie some recognition and will she light up? Look at her. Look at her whole demeanor. She can't help it, right? I'm speaking to her personal reality right now. She can try and fight it, but she can't, right? And here's the other thing eyes do, right? Their head starts tilting. And the hair. I knew it. I was waiting for it. There it is. There's your eye, ladies and gentlemen. They'll groom themselves. The camera's on them. Everything, they got. Oh, there's Stacy. Stacy's an IS. Okay, Stacy's an IS in that she's not as bubbly and effervescent and outspoken as Katie is, but because she associates to the S, she's more steady and stable and even keeled. Okay, so when we look at it, they love recognition, right? And when you recognize them, their whole demeanor changes. They start getting moving and their hair is like the camera's on and they start being very aware of themselves, right? D's, we're like picking in our ear. We don't really care. It is what it is. C's will just kind of just stare at you. And S's kind of just give you that nice little steady, stable way about them, right? They'll smile like Stacy's doing right now a little bit. The C's, they just look at you. Like if Lenny was on the screen right now, he'd just be like, right? It's all different. But these are how we understand how people show up. Friendly relationships. They're motivated by friendly relationships. Again, friends, family, fun, etc. Their fears. You ready for this? Ladies, talk to me. You get rejected, what happens? Oh. And that's not a gender thing, right? Though it tends to be, but a high I female, you rejected them?
How can anyone reject me? That's what I want to know. How can anyone really reject the Solar Queen?
Moving along. Right? So social rejection, right? If you rejected them publicly, if you chastise them publicly, etc., like it will ruin their world.
Chris, can I touch on that quickly?
Yeah, please do.
Two things you just said: fun and rejection, right? So the fun piece, the positive. I'm going to go back to recruiting, right? That's my love language. What I love. If you have a high I in your world, they're amazing recruiters. They can be. Let me rephrase that, right? But if they're not having fun building, they're not going to do it. It's very, very simple. The kryptonite, though, I got to point this out. We all have kryptonite, right? I'm not picking on eyes. We all have kryptonite. Eyes have a
Notice
gift.
He said we. Notice he said we. Did you hear that?
Huge.
What did Aaron just tell you?
Spoke to the eye.
He's an eye.
So watch this, though, right? We have the gift of having conversation. We're able to spark a conversation with a stranger. That is a recruiting gift. S's and C's would kill for that. Here's the kryptonite for eyes. Are you ready? And there's a lot of eyes on this call. I'll tell you that right now. The fear of rejection. The reason they don't recruit, they don't send that video, they don't have that conversation. They'll have the conversation, but they don't dovetail it to where they want it to go, is what if Katie said no? Whoa. What if Stacy said this wasn't for her? It is paralyzing to a high eye, my friends. Paralyzing. I have so many high eyes that want everything in the world, and they cannot let go of that rejection piece, and they can't. and
Yeah,
that
how
would
long
be the
did-
reason for their lack of winning.
Aaron, how long did it take you to be more expressive on social media and video?
Oh my gosh, 7-8 years, man.
Yeah, years. It drove me nuts. I'm like, get on damn video. Right? But here's the thing. You ready? We heard his language. When he started talking, he's like, his brain automatically associated to what he associates to, which is all. You hear what he also said. You know me, recruiting is my love language. Why is recruiting his love language? Because recruiting involves people. It involves the collaboration of people. Eyes love that. I'm telling you guys, when you understand this and then you hear people talk, it becomes, all right, you're an I, you're an F, you're a D, you're this. Okay. So let's wrap this up real quick. You'll also know being ignored. Okay. That's another thing. Like you ignore a high I, forget. Yeah. You see Katie. Katie's like, oh no, please don't do that. Right. When somebody talks down to them, crushes their world, meaning their confidence. Right. So also understand high eyes, they'll go out and talk about your opportunity to everyone. They won't close. They're terrible closers, right? They actually, there's the Stacy, right? There's the RIS right there, okay? Steady, stable, right? They won't close. They have a really hard time of closing. You want to know why? Because that close could be rejection.
Thanks.
And then because of that, they may get ignored. All right, so eyes, that's something you need to stretch. You'll also notice charm, enthusiasm, sociability, optimism. You go, girl. You got this, right? They are the most supportive people in your world. They will make you. That's why you hear me say all the time, like when Aaron edifies, like, dude, there's no greater feeling in the world than when Aaron edifies you. That's what high eyes do. They're good at it. Like high D's will be like, yo, this is my boy Aaron. Like we've been in business. Dude's a stud, man. He just freaking crushes it. So Aaron, let's jump into it. Right? Aaron has like a 30-second off the cuff, and you're like, damn, dude, that's really me. Right? That's the difference. Okay. And then talkativeness. Oh, you get two eyes talking. You might as well clear your calendar. Clear it. You ain't going anywhere for a while. Okay. So be careful hanging out with a bunch of eyes going out to lunch or having drinks and socializing. You'll have fun. But man, if you are a high D, you're going to be like, take me home now. I just need to be left alone for a little bit. And then limitations, impulsiveness. They will say yes. They don't even care what it is. They don't care how much it costs. They don't care what you're doing. If there's people and it looks like you're having fun, they're in. All right, they're in. And here's the cool part. If your culture inside your organization is one that's fun and that recognizes them and makes them feel good and has people connectivity, they don't even have to sell anything. They'll stay with you forever, especially the IS because they're steady, stable, loyal. Disorganization. Whoo! Hot messes. My high eyes, hot messes. Hot mess. Right? They even self-identify like, oh, I'm a hot mess. I'm all over the place. I know. We know. Why? Because even though they're above the line, which is detail orientation, the difference between D and an I is you ask an I to get into details and you will it's like spinning them around and telling them to run. They're all over the place. Okay, they'll run away from you when it comes to details. I's more so than D's. And then there's lack of follow through. Guys, I's are very good in sales because they can get people. Oh, I love it. They build businesses on referrals. They'll sell to one, get 7 more sales after that, but they're terrible at follow through. Terrible. Okay. So again, we covered the D, we covered the I, we covered the big scope. Were there any questions in the chat box that we need to handle before we wrap up, Aaron?
No, I think we got most of them. I pulled them up and you did a great job. I just want to say thank you
cool.
First and foremost. Guys and gals, do me a favor in the chat. Obviously, give Chris Hart a big thank you for doing this. He didn't have to, but also let him know we need him to come back next week to finish the S and the C.
Yep.
And in fact, I would even say for the next several weeks, because then we can start to dovetail this information, right? I'd love to hear, your biggest aha from either Stacy or Katie, if you guys are willing, real quick. And then I have one other thing I want to add, Chris.
Yeah. Anything from the ladies?
Stacy and Katie, you're on mute. Heads up.
Sorry about that. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
This
Stacey?
was so fun, and it's been a while since I've taken the test, but it's obvious I don't need to retake it because you just nailed me, Chris, there.
Well, careful what you say.
Although I do have some of that D in there too. So
Yeah, so you're probably an ID. So remember, we have all four. Okay.
yeah, I
We
do.
have all four.
And I love
Stacey,
D.
I have a few hours. Call me. We can chat about it.
There we
But did
go.
you hear
I
what
love
she
it.
said? Did you hear what she said? First things out of her mouth. This was so fun.
Yep. Call me for the fun, anybody.
Yeah, definitely
leave me
call the
out.
high I for the fun. Let them plan your parties.
Yes.
Chris, two little tips I'll add. One's a tip, one's a pet peeve of mine. And hopefully this doesn't dovetail in a long conversation. I have a feeling it might spark something with you. Number one, my favorite question to ask somebody, whether this is recruiting or sales, it's a quick blank that I probably get right 70 to 75% of the time. And in sales, I'll take that number all day long. It's what do you do for a living? Depending on their answer, I can usually map out their profile or at least have a really good starting point. Engineers, C's and S's for the most part. You're not going to see a Katie sitting behind a cubicle, crunching that. No. Teachers, C's and S's. An attorney, most likely is going to be a D or an I. There could be some S in there too, obviously, but right, I'll get a really good feel for where they're at based on their career. So that has served me very, very well. The second one, pet peeve, and so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it's important, and I'm going to challenge Chris to bring this up every time we do this. Your DISC assessment is not an excuse. I want to be clear on that. It's not an excuse for you for not hitting the goals that you want. And I'm going to say more importantly, it's not an excuse for you to treat people bad, right? I hear that a lot. I'm a high D, get used to it. No. That is a limiting small mindset. Because we're teaching this, you're now aware of it. So now you're going to be more aware. I'm going to challenge all of you on this call today. If you're talking to someone that isn't a high D, that you're going to learn to speak a little bit softer. I'm not saying change who you are, but learn how to communicate. That's part of communication. It's not me just beating my chest. Chris, you adapt to me, right? That's not what this is about. This is not an excuse maker. And I think that's important.
100%. Yeah, and one thing I'll add to what you said before is what do you do for a living? When they answer you, ask them, how do you like that career? Because if they're an engineer and they're like, oh yeah, I've been doing engineer for been an engineer for the last 5 years. Oh, how do you like it? They have a personality that doesn't align with the actual business. When you see someone like S's are like nurses, caregivers. When my father was dying and we brought in hospice and those ladies came in, I was like, I have no idea how you guys do this. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with in my life. And the one lady's like, I love it because she's an S, she's a nurturer. Right. And that was her contribution. So guys, we're going to go so deep in this. We're going to navigate through a lot of content over the next coming weeks. So definitely put this on your calendar, 9:30 every Friday morning. We're going to StreamYard it live in a bunch of different areas. So if you can't be with us directly, it will be on the internet for you guys to consume. But I promise you, this will take your sales, your leadership, your relationships to the next level. So Aaron, that's all I got for you guys today. Come back next week. We'll navigate the C and the S and we'll take it from there.
Appreciate you, brother. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.
Take care.